Hi everyone and welcome. Today we're going to learn how to square up our fabric so that we can get accurate cuts for our quilting. So let's take a look at some of the supplies we're going to be using. So first we have our yardage. We're going to use our see-through ruler, our mat, our cutting mat, and our rotary cutter. Now I'm using the Ulfa 60-inch because when you have thicker fabrics, this can go through multiple layers much easier. So let's get started. Okay, so I moved some of my supplies out of the way, and I know you're probably all thinking, well, who has fabric that looks like this, right? Most of the time when you go to the store, it's already folded and you want to cut it right like that. But a lot of people pre-wash their fabrics, dry them, iron them, and prepare them for their quilt ahead of time. So when you do that, you're going to have just this yardage. So how do you square this up so that you're not, you're making sure it's straight, it's not on the, you're not cutting on the bias or anything like that. So basically what I do is I just take somewhere in the middle. This is probably around 3 yards of fabric. I take it somewhere in the middle, one of the salvage edges, and then I take the other end and I put them together. And I just line it up. I try to keep them a little separated because I'm going to move them, I'm going to shift them back and forth to get my proper alignment. And I just take a square like pieces, and I just take a somewhere width like that. Now, as you can see on the bottom, it's not laying straight. So at this point, you just want to take your fingers and sort of shift them back and forth to where you think it's going to lay, or you can actually see. And sometimes it's a little cumbersome, I'll admit, but you just got to fiddle around with it. You can see that it will come together, and all of a sudden you'll have what looks like a straight piece at the bottom. And you can shake it a little, you can move it back a little if you think it's not right, but I think right about there for me, it's straight. And you can see it's not wrinkled. So at that point, I'm going to just lay it down. And then I'm going to take the ends, because I know it's going to be straight. And I'm just going to maneuver that out, match up my ends. There we go. So we have one side that's hanging nicely. And then our other side, I'm going to hold it so it doesn't shift. I find this the easiest for me. Now there's many ways that you can do this. You just got to find what's more comfortable for you. But I find this to be the easiest. Okay, so now we have a perfectly straight piece of fabric. Our edges are meeting. And we're straight. This side needs to be just adjusted a little bit. Now, I'm using a piece of flannel, and flannel kind of sticks to itself, so that's why I'm playing with this a little extra, as opposed to a regular cotton. But this was really the biggest yardage I had, so I thought I would use this. Okay, now, this is not really a natural way to cut this long. You would really need some long rulers. So what you want to do is you want to repeat that again. So I'm going to take this raw edge and I'm going to fold it with the other edge. Now, if you've moved it in pretty accurately, you shouldn't have to adjust this too much. but I'm going to fold it up. And honestly, I got it pretty well. It's laying pretty nicely. So now I'm going to lay it down again, making sure my edges are lined up and it's straight all the way down. And that looks pretty good. So now I pretty much have my fabric all squared up and I can ready to cut. Now, I got my ruler. I don't want to cut in the middle of my fabric. So what I like to do is, now I have a 4-foot table. It's just a folding table. I'm going to bring this up. I usually just generally will fold it on itself. Like this. Grab my end. Lay it flat. And as you can see here, it doesn't meet up. So we need to cut that and straighten that out. Now, how I do this is I take the top and I line it up with one of my lines on my cutting mat, making sure that's straight. And the bottom, then I take my ruler and I now will use my straight lines going this way. And I want to cut that edge off so it's not all uneven. And it looks like I'll need to come in about an inch. So basically I'm going to take one of my lines. Usually I just take an inch line. And I'm going to square that up with my fabric right here. And as you see, it goes all the way across. And you can adjust that as you go. And now I'm going to cut that piece off. So now we have a straight edge. Now you can start cutting your fabric as you go along. We know that we have a straight edge here and we have a straight edge here. So if I want a 8-inch block, basically I will count my 1-inch square. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Put my ruler down, line it up on that square that I said was 8. Line my top ruler along with the top edge, or use any mark that you want. And because this ruler is a 12.5-inch ruler, it covers the whole thing, and I have some overlay here and here, so I can take the edge of my ruler, line it up with the edge of my mat, and I know that I am straight going all the way down. And there's my perfect 9-inch strip. Now, you have a 9-inch strip by the width of the fabric. So basically what you want to do is you want to open this up. And again, because I'm using flannel, it's sticking to itself. Now let's get this out of the way. Let's cut this down into our blocks. So I'm going to line up. I know I have a straight edge. And I'm going to line that up with one of the straight edges on my mat. And I have the selvage over here, which is where I want to cut that off first. So I'm just overlap it with one of the straight edges here so I can line that up and cut that off. So it's lined up on my mat. I'm going to take my ruler again. I'm going to pick one of the spots on my mat, line up my ruler with that line. And I do like to check to make sure that my top edge is lined up, and it is. And then I'm going to cut that off. So now I have a straight edge here. And again, if I want, say, an 8 or 9 inch block, I'm going to count my squares. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And I'm going to line up my edge again. Making sure we're straight here and we're straight here. I'm going to cut that block. And there we go. We have a perfect 9 inch square. And that's how you square up your fabric and cut your perfect blocks. So thank you for joining me today. I hope this was informational for you. And if you enjoyed this, please subscribe to my channel and hit that bell so you'll know when my next video comes out. And I hope you give it a thumbs up because that means a lot to me. So happy sewing and sew something happy.